I shouldn't have acknowledged it. I knew this would happen. I tried to convince myself that it wouldn't, but I guess some things will never change. All I can say is that these experiences have taught me never to be open about them and to acknowledge their existence only in silence. Today I crossed the line. I watched some videos about auras and other spiritual concepts. I decided to look at objects with a different perspective. I also saw some unsettling things, but I brushed them off, thinking, it's fine, never mind. But it's not just about the recording today. The first encounter I had was when I was a kid. It was inside the mirror. I remember seeing the reflection, but it wasn't showing me. It was showing a completely different reality. I could see my loved ones calling me, urging me to come closer. But I always knew it wasn't really them. Still, it would say, it's fine, come on, come to me. But I never dared to reply or even get close. Once it realized that I wouldn't come near, it changed its approach. The entity started talking to me, saying random things, laughing and showing me strange images in the mirror. I even told our house helper, and she admitted that she didn't feel comfortable near that area either. After that, I stopped sleeping on that side of the room. That's when I experienced my first sleep paralysis, or at least that's what I thought it was. I remember crying, begging, but my body wouldn't move. From my neck down, I was frozen. It was terrifying, but that wasn't the worst of it. Later, something happened that wasn't even sleep paralysis. When I would sleep, it felt like I was outside my body watching myself rest. Then it would come, grabbing my legs so violently that my entire body would slide. I could feel it, and if I really wanted to, I could have woken up. But I never did. I refused to let my consciousness bring me back. It kept pulling, trying to make me wake up and see, but I resisted. Eventually, it stopped. But lately, as I've been more inclined towards spirituality, it feels like I've been drawn closer to that other side again. Even as I write this, the hair on my body is rising. I know it senses that I'm talking about it, but I had to post this today. Then, today, something strange happened. I went to the bathroom and came back to find a screen recording on my phone, recording the exact time I wasn't in the room. My room was locked. The recording stopped automatically the moment I got back to my bed. I need to get rid of this presence again. If I sense him, I know he's sensing me too. Every time, even at the slightest acknowledgement of my psychic side, it tries to pull me in. I'm not weak, but it makes me feel like I'm being watched, like it knows I can see it. I want to forget again. But how long can I keep running? It's been here since I was a child, and I know where it resides. Should I still remain ignorant? I don't want to confront it. I've tried before, and things went terribly wrong. The camper. In 2013, I spent a few months living in a camper next to my grandpa's farmhouse in rural Michigan. It was quiet and isolated, the kind of place where you could hear a twig snap from 100 feet away. One night, just as I was dozing off, a loud bang jolted me awake. It came from the window right next to my bed. My heart pounded as I sat up, staring into the darkness of my bedroom. I listened for movement, but the night was still. Probably just a branch falling, I told myself. The wind had been strong earlier. I pulled the blanket over my head and forced myself back to sleep. The next morning, I stepped outside to check. No fallen branches, no footprints, no sign of anything, maybe an animal, a raccoon or a deer. But it would have to be big to hit the camper with that much force. It nagged at me, but I brushed it off. A week later, it happened again. Another bang. This time, I got up quickly and peeked through the curtain, but the night was pitch black, my reflection staring back at me from the window. I held my breath, listening. Then, faintly, leaves crunching. Footsteps. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it out the window. Nothing. No movement, no eyes glowing in the dark. Just the empty field and the distant outline of my grandpa's farmhouse. I told myself it was paranoia, made sure the door was locked, and climbed back into bed. But the banging didn't stop. It came back again and again. Always around midnight. Some nights, I thought I heard something breathing outside the thin camper walls. Then, one night, I woke up to something different. Not a bang. A soft, slow tap on the window, like someone was standing just outside, drumming their fingers against the glass. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, I packed my things and moved into the farmhouse. Months passed. I moved to a new town and started fresh. I barely thought about those nights in the camper anymore. Until I saw the news. A man had been arrested, a serial killer. He had been living in an abandoned house back in my old town. My stomach twisted as they showed footage of the house. I knew that house. It was the one directly across from my camper. I felt sick. That house had always creeped me out, especially at night. I used to walk past it to get phone signal, and every time I felt like I was being watched. I was being watched. Police found weapons inside and pictures of his victims, pictures of me, pictures of my camper. And the worst part, my camper door lock had been broken the whole time. I always thought it locked. It didn't. He could have come in any time he wanted. Even now, the thought of how close I was to him keeps me up at night. It started with the statue. It wasn't put there overnight. It couldn't have been. But it was just there, suddenly standing in the middle of the square, and no one could remember when it had arrived. No one could even remember who had placed it. At first glance, it looked like any other sculpture, an oversized, vaguely human figure, twisted in a way that made you look twice. But something about it was off. The face was too sharp, the mouth too wide, frozen in a grotesque, unnatural expression, like it had been caught in the middle of something wrong. The body was vaguely human, but it didn't sit quite right. A statue meant to be observed, to be watched. People shrugged it off, a new art piece, a weird tourist attraction. Who knew? Who cared? But not me. I could feel it. I always felt it. Watching. And then the disappearances started. The first was a woman, a mother of two, who had been walking her dog near the square. She was reported missing 2 days after the statue showed up. They said she went for a walk and never came back. No trace. Then a man, just a few days later. He'd been sitting on a bench by the statue, reading a newspaper. 1 minute he was there, the next minute gone. The police looked into it. Of course they did, but there was nothing, no leads, just questions. At first people wrote it off. People go missing. It happens all the time. But then there was more. A couple, a teenager, a small child, more pets too, all missing without a trace, all last seen at least a couple days before the statue appeared. The police are completely baffled, but the rumors were spreading faster than the disappearances. Some people said it was a serial killer, others said something else, something more, off. Really, no one knew. I should have listened to my instincts, but that day I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I was being paranoid, overreacting. Maybe I thought the statue was just an eyesore, something I could ignore. I was walking toward the square when I saw it again. The statue stood in the center, like it had always been there. But this time something was different. It wasn't just the look of it, or the way it stood. It was the presence. The air felt thick, like something was pressing against my skin. I pulled out my phone and took a picture, a reflex, just like everyone else had been doing. The image came out fine, crisp and clear, but when I looked at it, something was wrong. I zoomed in on the photo. The statue's face wasn't just twisted anymore. The expression was sharper. The angles had changed, just slightly. The eyes were darker, more alive. It was as if it was no longer a static object, but something that saw me. That knew I was looking at it. My skin prickled. The photo didn't lie. I looked up, and there it was again. The statue, staring back at me, not in the same way as before. Its mouth, barely visible in the photo, seemed to be open, just a crack. I shoved my phone back in my pocket, my hands shaking. I turned away, walking briskly out of the square. But the feeling like I was being watched, like something was moving just out of sight, it didn't fade. I have never felt a fear like it. I felt as though I was followed all the way home. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it, the photo, the way the statue's expression had shifted, the way its eyes seemed to follow me. I didn't want to be afraid. I didn't want to believe it, but every time I closed my eyes I could still see it, the statue's face, distorted, watching. That night I sat on my bed, scrolling through the photo again. Every time I looked at it, something felt different. The face, the way the mouth had widened, just enough to make the statue look like it was smiling, grinning, like it had been waiting for me. I couldn't take my eyes off it. And then I heard it, a sound, soft at first, like a knock at the door, but the knock didn't stop. It came again, then again, faster now, like something was trying to get in. My heart raced. The knock was too rhythmic, too deliberate. I jumped up, heart slamming against my ribcage, and rushed to the door, but no one was there. I closed the door, but the knocking continued, the sound growing louder, as though it was coming from inside the walls. I swallowed hard. What was happening? I turned back to the photo. I needed to see it again. The face. It was worse now. The mouth was wide open, gaping, the eyes empty, hollow. I had to squint to see it, but it was there, unmistakable. Something was in the reflection, something behind me. I whipped around, nothing, but the feeling was there. The same crawling sensation on the back of my neck, the feeling that something was too close, too near, watching.